Hello, welcome. Glad to have you here for this session. My name is Jodi Smith, and I am the DSO at Fresno Pacific University in California. Um, I want to chat with you and share with you some thoughts as entering students. You're walking through this mire of who am I going to be? What am I going to be? And as well as what college are you going to attend to? But we want to look at what is it to choose a major, and at the same time, how are you developing your passion? And does your major reflect your passion? And is declaring a major going to take you on to your next step? I've been in the college career for over 25 years. So I've been working as an advisor, as a counselor at a couple of different institutions, currently at Fresno Pacific. And this presentation was actually put together by a few other people. I've latched on to what Dr. Jeffrey Cole from Geneva College in Pennsylvania, what Martha Fregosa from Fresno Pacific College here with me in California, and Katie Lenz, who is from Oral Roberts University in Oklahoma, outlined this presentation, and it's a great discussion. So let's get into it. So let me address too, why are there a variety of panelists that have been a part of this presentation? And we're part of an organization that has put together these opportunities for you to connect with us through the virtual opportunity, and that's NACAP. NACCAP organization stands for the North American Coalition for Christian Admissions Professionals, and that includes North America, which is definitely Canada and the US. So I wanted to give a shout out to this organization, and their website actually has a list of schools, and there's I think it's just over 300 colleges and universities. So if you have time and are interested in who we are as Christian colleges, as schools that are seeking to follow Christ and present opportunities for you in education, I encourage you to check out that website. So let's get into the subject. Choosing a major, finding your passion. I think the biggest question is this one: if money were not an issue, how would you fill your days? What is it that brings you joy? Where would you focus your attention? If we didn't have to sit in an office, if you didn't have to be in a car, if you didn't have to be out recruiting or work in a shop, what would you be doing? Would you be dancing? Would you be creating? And how would that look for a lifetime? And that's really what we hope as individuals. Yes, we're looking to find jobs and professions, but hopefully we're tapping into as well where we find senses of joy. And I think before we go too big with those questions, because I have some ideas, I want to focus in where we're looking. So the idea of finding this passion becomes, how are you choosing your major, and what are you doing when you go to college in this big vast, where are you going to college, who am I wanting to be question. Let's unpack just quickly the idea of what is a major. It is going to be your course of study at college, university, and I will use those terms, college and university, interchangeably. Each school has a website and list of majors and opportunities, and you're going to find that there are different titles, that there's an essence to the sameness, but they all have different titles. So don't get lost in the fact that you're looking for a particular title. Remember, the core of the subject is basically what we have outlined here. It's math, it's chemistry, it's literature, it's computer science. So the idea of a major is a collection of classes that are going to emphasize a subject. And this can be a general subject such as English. It can be a little bit more focused on a theme such as urban studies. That could be a major title. Or it could be a professional field, which is going to be a nurse, a doctor, an accountant. That's going to be your major title. You'll also hear, what is your minor? Schools may or may not offer an opportunity for you to have a minor, which is, again, similar to a major, but not as many classes. And you can use this with your major to emphasize an area. For instance, you may have a music major, but perhaps your minor is music composition. Some schools will take your major and allow you to double or dual major. So here's a couple of definitions I have for that as well. A double major usually is 2 degrees in 2 different fields. Dual major is similar to the major and minor, but you're going to be taking the same amount of credits in a dual major. I think what is more important is do not feel pressure if you're considering a double or dual major, and do not feel you have to go after more than one undergraduate major, because again, they're not trophies. Having one more does not necessarily mean it's better. And then your question might be, with these majors, when do I have to declare it? Often we feel, as I see students applying, and I've been in your shoes because I've gone through this process of, I have to know my major. I have to know who I want to be when I start school. There are some schools that is true. And so it's going to be up to you to make that list of schools and knowing their deadlines and dates and their expectations of you. But most of the schools I'm referring to under the NACAP umbrella are liberal arts schools that tend to allow you this first year to take some classes and then declare your major. But again, I'm going to backtrack and say that that's important to know what the school is going to require of you. So there are some that you're going to need to start a bit earlier than others. The idea of a doctor, a teacher, where there is a course of curriculum that you have to follow a set pathway so that you accomplish in 4 years your major degree, and graduating with that diploma in hand that will give you that major title. But not all all schools require you to declare your major immediately. Some of these schools that I'm mentioning here, these liberal arts schools, have core general education requirements. And I think this is something that we value here, definitely in California and around the area where my school is located in the center of California, is that you're building a knowledge base by looking at a curriculum that's not just a major focus. You're not just coming to take math classes for a math major, or if you're thinking of being an accountant, all you do is focus in business, but there's a breadth of knowledge that you're building. So as we think about studying your major, your passion, know that there's opportunity in this education experience that you're launching into that is going to allow you this opportunity to build this breadth. And this is going to become important because as you think about a liberal arts education, we know statistically you're going to be moving in careers that are, you may have 3 different careers that are going to be varied. We're finding statistically that students may have a career within their major field when they leave, but maybe not for a lifetime. So I think it's important to know that, and again, my statistics come here from the United States, that workers in the US are not always in a career related to their major. And we see that I've known students after they leave college within 10 years have had 5 different jobs with different fields. Sometimes they're related. So that gets to the question of, if I'm having to pick a major and choose a career, how do I balance this? That's a big step. And I think in going back even a step further is knowing that the skills that you learn in this undergraduate experience are going to be an education experience, a life experience itself, that you're going to develop these skills that are marketable, that provide longevity. And that's valuable and important when you think about what is it I want to do. I thought this was kind of interesting. The idea as you're building this critical thinking and problem solving, we have evidence that show from a number of statistics that even just recently, I think it was Ashley Stahl of Forbes magazine and research noted that 62% of college graduates are in jobs that require a degree, not a degree of their field, but a degree. That speaks to the value of this education experience. And of course, you're here, so you understand the value and you're seeking the value of this education for your experience. But we get to think a little bit bigger about it as it applies to us personally. And that comes down practically to what is it an employer is looking for. And I've had the privilege of doing some interviews as we've had applicants apply to be an admission counselor. I've been on the interview side myself and worked through questions that employers are asking their students. And that becomes more evidence of, great, this applicant has a degree, was committed, completed their 4-year education. But I'm also looking at a broader perspective of who this person is in front of me. So I think you can know in all confidence, as you go through college, as you get this degree and you're out in the workplace looking for a job, that these are skills that you're going to have experience with in education. These are skills you're going to have from life. And these are, this list here that I have in front of you is what employers are actually looking for. Work ethic. How do you think? How do you lead? What is your self-confidence? Computer skills. This is important because it's the opportunities that you've had through your college education. Notice while there's some detail about some skills and knowledge, this also allows for that breadth experience to build foundationally on. All right, let's get to this. Where are we going to get started and how do we get going into finding our passion and equating that to a major? It really comes down to knowing yourself. The answer is as simple as that. It's being able to reflect on your interest, your values, things you enjoy, things that you're good at. What is it you've been gifted with as skills? And I always come back to, what is it that brings you joy in your heart to do? And I think sometimes you can start with, where do these things intersect? That allows you an opportunity to then know where to launch and consider a potential major. I think a great thing to do is to take career assessments. There's a variety of these online and you can definitely look into them. There's a self-assessment test as well as skills tests. Those give insight to opportunities that align with personality type, but knowing yourself is also asking harder questions. It's what motivates you? Where are your strengths? Where do I enjoy learning? Do I find myself introvert or am I an extrovert? And by that, of course, I mean as an introvert, and I definitely qualified it as an introvert. It's not, I'm the quiet person in the corner. For me, an introvert is, how am I processing information and how do I share that with my group? Often when I'm in team environments, I've noticed that as an introvert, I take in the information around me. I'm listening to my colleagues and what is it they're saying and offering. Then I align what they're saying with my thoughts of contribution. And often when I then give my contribution as an introvert, it's a little bit more well-rounded sometimes. That's not to say an introvert is better than an extrovert, but it's how I operate. So these, as I said, these are questions to be asking. And as you're asking and looking at these values, I think the best thing to do is to be journaling. I know it's challenging to think about journaling. Maybe you do. I hope you do. If not, I hope you will start writing down some of these questions and use these as pivotal frameworks that can help you choose down the road when it comes to that big question of, who do I want to be? Where would I be if I could be dropped into a career and didn't have to go through all the struggle and challenges of learning? But that's also where your skills and joys come from. So take some time to do this journaling and evaluate, who you are. And then I think what can go along with that is the idea of exploring majors. So you do a little bit of personal self-investment of who you are. You're doing that research. But alongside, I think it's an opportunity now to be exploring what are these majors and how are they titled? What do they mean at the different schools, at the colleges and universities? Um, and if you have opportunity, be taking classes that spark your interest. Remember, as I mentioned earlier, that you have, in studying the liberal arts schools, you have some time to take some basic classes that will be of interest to you. Perhaps history is not your favorite subject, but there's a history subject, one subject that you might be interested in. Take that class because you'll probably receive credit for that class, and it may prompt some interest into a future major or a major that's related to history field. And I think also as you're exploring majors, definitely talk with your friends, students that you've known, your peers who have gone before you, who are 2 years ahead of you. How did they discover their major? Ask them, meet with a counselor at your school. I assume that you may have an academic or a career advisor at your school. Take the opportunity to sit down and or schedule some time one-on-one, whether that's in a Zoom meeting or if that's in their office, to discuss different majors and options. I think these are people who are valuable resources. And if you have time, 30 minutes time with them can be very insightful. So don't hesitate to use the people around you. So I've talked about exploring who you are, what questions to ask yourself. We've looked at explore what majors might be. Let's look at exploring careers, a vocation. If you have opportunity, I think it's great to job shadow. That if you can volunteer and get involved in opportunities, that would be wonderful. Very insightful. That allows you to know if a field is right for you. I remember thinking, oh, I wanted to be a teacher. And I just knew I'd be great in the classroom. And then I realized that standing up in front of the classroom is one element. There is a large, vast quantity of research and preparation that goes into preparing a single lesson for a classroom. And I recognized I did not have the patience for that craft. And it was because I got to spend a day with a friend who was a teacher, and not just in the classroom, but I got to watch her maneuver and plan for the next day. So take that opportunity. If you haven't yet already, volunteer, do some job shadowing. I would even challenge you to go out and interview an individual in the field you're interested in. If you are considering the medical field, have you job shadowed? Have you had an opportunity to volunteer in those areas? Because that will open the world of knowledge to know, are you looking beyond what is the glory of a position to understanding the nitty gritty day in, day out? So again, this comes back to time, that I'm encouraging you to invest in yourself, in self-exploration of who you are, and in the idea of knowing major titles and opportunities, to understanding the career. That is the best opportunity you can have. As I said, get the experience, have an internship. Maybe you can get some high school credit for the opportunity of having an internship. That would be wonderful. Just a couple of reminders too about this idea of majoring is, don't choose a major based upon income alone. Do some research. I think finding that opportunity of research will allow you to know how well the major fits you. Don't put the pressure on choosing to double major. I think the idea even of not following your friends, while I'm encouraging you to reach out to the peers 2 years ahead of you or a year ahead of you, recognize that you are your own person. You have your own gifts. And while your gifts and some of your joys might be shared with friends, that doesn't, you have other skills and gifts that are your own. And recognize, just because your friend who you're so much alike is going into a research field and is excited about chemistry, just because you do good research doesn't mean you have to follow in the chemistry route. You can be a researcher and follow along the lines of a history route. So again, this is going back to the understanding who you are and recognizing your gifts and passions. I've jumped through quite a bit, and I've missed a couple of steps here that I do want you to keep in mind. The idea of college majors, I think as you're looking to choose those, again, remember that they're not collections. And once you choose a major, you don't stop learning in other fields. I want you to be practical and explore what a variety of majors do look like and offer you. I want you to get your hands dirty. I want you to get involved and volunteer in areas that pique your interest. I want you to definitely be journaling about yourself and what brings you joys. I think the idea of understanding not what is it that you are looking to be, but ask yourself, what all can I be? You're not limited to choosing a major and being that one specific person. You have opportunity in this college experience and then in life, which is so much more time than your college experience, to explore how can you take your gift and make a change in our world today. And I think that's important. I think those are the questions I see you and your peers asking at this time is, what is it I can do to make this world better? How can I implement change at variety of levels? And you can do that by knowing yourself, by having taken that time, this time you have now, to learn what you like, what you know, and then own why you know it. And that makes your application of this idea of joy, passion, career, and major all work together. This is, again, a learning experience that this is going to grow over time. The idea of this research of knowing yourself also allows you to spend some time knowing that education doesn't end here in 4 years. We've got a short period that we get to work with you as college professionals in the education experience, where you're going to have peers and mentors with you. And I think that's something to take advantage of, that these are people that will come along your path for you to launch questions at, that we can walk alongside you to answer. But along this path, you're going to be living a bigger life. So taking the skills that you learn and invest in our college experience is going to prepare you to launch in a variety of ways after you leave our colleges. And that's something you can walk away with confidence, that the skills that you have now, the skills that you learn from this college experience, are going to prepare you to answer those questions that your employer will be asking. And I'm going to shoot back over here to, I think these are the skills that are so important. And I want to reflect back to these. The idea of developing work ethic, leadership skills. And you may have already had that experience. Find the words. What you need to be able to do is find the words that elaborate the type of leadership you reflect. And again, it is just taking this time. I've been talking quite a bit about a variety of things, and I want to make sure we tackle any questions that you may have along this path of career exploration of majors, of potential jobs. Um, Let me know if there's anything that jumps up.
Jodi, I'm really glad you left this one up. I think this is a very important slide to remember, because clearly these are skills, to your point, are desired regardless of industry, regardless of job, regardless of career path. And none of the thing on here is specific to any major. You will gain all of these things just through the process of that college experience and that college education. Obviously, they're going to vary depending on your desire for leadership or your desire for certain computer skills. That's when it really drills down and becomes more specific. But to your point, these are the very minimal expectation right now. So we have one question that came in here. One of my students asked, what's the difference between a major and a minor?
Yes, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. The idea, again, of a major is going to be something that you will be required, you, the student, will be required to declare and claim as your focus of study. The idea that it is a theme, it is a subject. Every school will require you to declare a major. And again, it's going to be particularly a single subject that you declare. And that is what your degree, your diploma when you graduate, your transcripts when you leave education are going to state you had this major. And that was your field of study. And then again, the minor, let's see, as I get back to this, this is a concentration. So if your major was history, your minor, and students do not have to declare a minor. A minor may happen by accident. You may take more history classes that are aligned with, I'll choose a US focus of the Civil War, the years of 1776 here in the United States. So your minor is an academic concentration of your history major. Another example I'll give you is I actually started as a business major in college. I was doing what my father told me was a practical route, declaring business as a major. And I was actually considering becoming an accountant, certified public accountant. Halfway through that, within my sophomore year, so I started my freshman year, my first year, second year, sophomore year, sat down with my academic advisor. And he said, Jodi, you can do this. You're probably going to carry through with a B plus average. But I noticed when we meet, because you'd have to meet with your academic advisor at the college I attended to every semester. He was noticing when I would get excited about classes I wanted to take, it was in an English major. And what he ended up working with me through is I did a 180. I became an English major. And because of the number of classes I had taken, I had a business minor. So on my transcripts, if I was to get a copy of my college transcript, it would show in one corner that I had an English major, which we can talk about the value of an English major. But also it shows and states that I have a business minor. And that's a sellable aspect when it comes to getting a career, going for a job interview. Maybe my English major is not applicable, but my business minor is. So that idea of a minor can be an emphasis or an added tract. It may mean you take additional classes beyond your major. It may come along because it pairs well with your
So a follow-up question, I think, would be, what's the real advantage of having a minor?
I find the advantage, and I think my story is the best example of my minor reflects some practicality of my knowledge base. And it may just happen. You may not intend for a minor, but a minor does allow for practicality. Again, as I think that I use the example, another example is the idea of music. You can be a music major, but within the music field, you have vast opportunities of what it is you do. What is it specifically that highlights your music major? The minor can highlight your major, such as what I have here is music composition, becoming a composer, becoming a music writer instead of the musician. It's great to have the breadth and be well versed in a music field. But the idea of composition sets you apart for particular careers later on. And maybe even a better example is the exercise science with the idea of sports management. Exercise science can also be known at other colleges and universities as kinesiology. But the idea of sports management as a minor shows a little bit more of leadership skills, of organization, of some practical application to the kinesiology or exercise science field. I hope that helps clear that.
Yeah, exercise science is a very unique, interesting example, and I'm glad you brought that up. You know, and you really need to do your research as to what exactly will that set you on the path to accomplish, because exercise science could be, like you said, sports management, so anything team specific at any level. It could also mean on your path to become a physical education instructor or teacher. A lot of schools use the kinesiology program as a pre-med track. So obviously those are some very diverse ultimate end games, right? Whether or not whichever, but ultimately they all still have that as an umbrella title. So I think it's important to understand.
Absolutely, thank you.
So another question came in. What do you do if you have too many interests? How do you decide?
That's definitely a challenge, and also great that you have so many interests. And I think it's going to go back to the idea of, is there one that gives you more joy or another? I think picking a major, I could go about answering this a couple of different ways. So this is a great question and a hard one, and I think it's the one that probably students can struggle the most with. I think an opportunity to know that through the idea of the colleges that I'm representing here, that you can obtain something called a liberal arts degree. And this is a general umbrella degree, and it pulls together this variety of subjects. And it speaks to the breadth of knowledge you can have. I think too, so that's one way you could actually find there is a degree out there called liberal arts degree that allows you to take all your interests and put it under one umbrella. But not all schools offer this, and this may not be the final answer for you, because you do want to have a focus. And the key is also working with people, knowing that you have usually at the first year in your college experience to take some classes and decide on a major allows you that further time to explore who is it you want to be. One of the questions I ask is, if I was to drop you 5 years in the future, 10 years in the future, what would you be doing? And again, that's the idea of a job, of a career that may be created, that may be existence. It may not. You may actually create a new career job experience that hasn't been defined yet. You do not have to fit into a bucket. So taking those together, working with people who can be advisors, taking time to do assessment of all your gifts, which one, if you were to pick 3, bring you joy, those will speak to a particular type of subject, and you'll be able to narrow in on a major in that way. That's a little convoluted.
Yeah, obviously we don't have context as to who's asking that question. Like, is this a high school sophomore versus senior? I mean, obviously that's 2 full years of trying to figure it out. My advice would be, you know, if you are a senior, then start looking for those programs that do have the either general major or that undecided track to help you figure it out. Obviously, if you're an underclassman, then you know you have a lot more time to do that job shadowing, do that journaling, do that career assessment, which you've already mentioned, which I think are some really sound advice there. Another question we have: Does your portfolio matter while applying into a program, for example, music?
That's definitely a good and challenging question. Um, when let me go about this a couple of different ways. If you're considering your portfolio into getting into college, I think an idea of well-rounded is definitely helpful, but not so well-rounded that you haven't had a focus. I think I could also speak to the adverse of being too focused. Can you think outside the box and be open to a college experience? So that could go either way. But also, if you have a specific program in music, if there is a specific focus you are doing with a biology major, the idea of a pre-med track, I think it does speak well that a portfolio reflect the experiences you've had. And again, I'm answering this question from the perspective of an admission counselor looking at a student being admitted into our school. That's one way. There's also the idea, if you're asking the question of career job after graduating, then of course, yes, you do want your portfolio to show emphasis of experience that you've had in this college experience that's prepared you for a specific field.
Yeah, I'm not sure, there was no clarity on that, but I think you're right. You've answered it well either way. So,
Right.
so yeah, I mean, your example of the job shadowing and how that kind of changed your path is my similar experience. And I'm very grateful that I took the time to do my research my senior year of high school. And I did some job shadowing, and man, that really changed. I mean, I did literally a 180, and I'm very grateful for that, because that's when you want to learn that. Not, 2 years into your college path, because I would have been down pretty far into, some courses, and I would have had to basically start over. And that's not when you want to figure that out. You want to figure that out a lot sooner.
Absolutely.
How do you open up your decision to your parents, considering it is not what they were expecting?
That's definitely a challenge, and that may be generational. That is definitely going to answer that depends upon your culture as well.
Mhm.
I am what's called a first generation student, so no one in my family before me had gone to college. So the understanding that my family had was, when you go to college, you pick something practical, something you can do. You want this college experience to prepare you for a field. What we didn't understand is that, yes, college, no matter what your major is, prepares you to work. And I go back to that idea of college will give you a breadth of knowledge. It will give you critical thinking skills that don't just ask a question of the major, of a job, but you're going to be able to think outside the box. There's a breadth of knowledge that you will be such a valuable asset and a team player in any career you step into, that no matter really what your major is, you will be a valued asset to a job, to a career. Now, speaking to the family and helping them understand, and again, I went from business, which is practical, to English, and to understand the idea of English, that only meant to my family, you're going to be a teacher. When you knew you cannot be a teacher, you don't have the skills for that. And that wasn't where my joy was. I had to help my family understand. And because I did my research of the major, the English major, I had the support of my academic advisor, but I did the research of my English major. I was able to help my family understand, and it became a lot of conversations with particularly my father of how this is practical, how this allows me variety, because I was a little undecided as to what I was going to step into career-wise. I wasn't sure. I was involved in a job that was going to open up some doors, but and I was grateful for. But yes, having those conversations with family and helping them understand that the education you're building is going to be a selling point no matter what your first career step will be.
We have a couple more. How do you find the balance between the things you enjoy and the things you are good at?
Oh my goodness, that is definitely a great question. Exciting. And sometimes you don't find a balance. Sometimes you have to create that balance. There are things I enjoy doing and I'm gifted at with my church, with my involvement in some volunteer work. But I'm not always good at that. I'm enjoying that. And it makes my heart happy. I know I'm doing good things when I'm involved in this volunteer work. But also balancing what I'm good at sometimes becomes more practical. It's sometimes harder to do, and I need to build in time to plan and be disciplined in that. So that's a balancing act. And some students, you may be gifted at that already. Both things may be aligned. But I think being prepared to be a little bit disciplined in your life. There's times when you're adulting that you have to say yes and no. And sometimes in college, you get to learn how to say no. And saying no is okay. Of course, it's framing it and how well you say no.
Another one, does going to college offer you an environment like a symposium?
That's a great question. And in general, I'm going to say yes, that the idea of a symposium, the idea of general lectures and the idea of learning knowledge base, most schools are designing symposium times. They're often called freshman seminars to start out with at schools. There will be symposiums within your major experience as well, where you're invited to an evening night discussion, and alumni come back and speak to you and share where they've gone within that major after leaving, which is a source of encouragement and also a source of networking for you. So symposiums in the framework of general sessions together, there will be times of learning, often called freshman seminars, and then there will be symposium network opportunities within your major as you become a junior and senior in your major before you leave.
Sometimes those opportunities present themselves through clubs and organizations too.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So it doesn't always have to be under the structure of a class or a major.
Absolutely, great point, yes.
All right, well, I don't see any others coming in, and our time is about up anyway. So thank you, Jodi, so much for your expertise on this.
Oh, thank you for allowing me this time, and thank you for participating. And I do hope that this encourages you to spend some time getting to know yourself and tapping into those skills.
And if we happen to be speaking to students today that the parents weren't able to participate, this will be on demand. So if you want to watch it again, or if you want to encourage your parents or some other mentor to watch it and to provide you some feedback based on Jodi's expertise, I welcome you to do that as well. Thanks, Jodi.
Thank you.